Okay, what do I want to talk about tonight? I'm watching the comments come in. I'm just seeing Frankie ask, what do we say to people on the doorstep when they say they don't vote? Around a third of the country doesn't vote. And if they did, a third of the country can elect a government. If a third of the country voted for Britain, we could be in government. That's how significant it is. The powers that be, Labour and Tories, the status quo, want to remain the status quo. They're quite happy for power to drift from one side of the House of Commons to another, as long as they get their turn again. Quite happy for it to stay as it is. What they don't want is anyone else breaking through and disturbing that status quo. Both of the big parties have their core voter that will always vote for them, no matter what. Then it has the floating vote is not quite the right word, but it's the only expression that sort of fits for the sake of conversation. Let's call it that. Someone who'll go one way or the other, depending. They're not a hardcore Labour or Tory. Usually the people who decide elections, in fact. A lot of people in that vein will have voted and will give up on voting. This is exactly what the status quo wants them to do. The best way of maintaining the status quo, the Labour-Tory duopoly is what I usually call it, but actually someone said to me recently, it's actually more like a monopoly, which is true. The thing they want most is this disillusionment. It is, and the people, you've a lot of people after Brexit as well, they voted to leave the European Union. Didn't quite happen, unless it didn't happen any time quickly after. And I said, well, that's it, I'm never voting again. That's what the status quo wants. To change this country, you have to vote. To change this country, you have to stand. People must stand for election as well as vote. If you are incredibly cynical about electoral politics, then what have you got to lose by voting for someone else, for voting against the status quo? People have told me, I met someone on the doorstep very recently who said, well, what's the point? Nothing ever changes. So I'm not voting because nothing ever changes when you do. Well, nothing will change if you vote Labour and Tory. But we need an electoral revolution, for want of a better word. We need new people standing, and we need people to get behind those new people standing. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you decide not to vote, then you are guaranteeing that nothing will ever change. But you can vote, join, and stand for outside the status quo. That's your only chance of making things change. You can forfeit your democratic right and leave the status quo where it is, or you can decide to make change. New party, new candidates, new ideas are the only way we're going to make change. Forfeiting your ability, your right, your vote will change nothing. And that's why I say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't vote, nothing really will change. If you do, something might. And it'll take you 2 minutes to go down to the local community centre, whatever it may be, and put an X on a box. That's all you have to do. That's all. And if you really don't think it's going to make, well, what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Go out and use your vote. It's as simple as that. And there's no other way. There's nothing more dramatic or there's nothing else. There isn't any, it's as simple as that. Forfeit your vote, maintain the status quo. Vote differently, get involved. That's the way to make change. It really is that simple. And yes, that's what I'd say to people on the doorstep. And it's what I did say to the man who I spoke to about this. Well, Don't vote, and it really will. Nothing really will change. The very worst thing people can do is just not bother to vote. And the thing is, I say that completely understanding why. Because we've had this Labour Tory thing for as long as most of us have been alive. The only way to stop it is to use your vote. Simple as that.